Welcome back to my friend Mario, or Mario. How do you explain if you're from?
If you're from the Midwest, it's Mario, and if you're from the Southwest, it's Mario.
Okay. What if you spent every day of your life in the Southwest but got shitty grades in Spanish in high school?
Well, you're talking to him.
Oh! Cheech and Chong. Well played, sir. Well, all right. It says somewhere in the literature, I think it's talking about the subject of God, and it says, we just as soon not bring this topic up at all because it's going to lose some folks and piss some others off. But we got to, there's an analog here. I'm going to talk to you today about COVID in recovery.
Yeah, man.
And by the time we're a paragraph into it, some people have already turned off the episode if they haven't already.
Right.
But this is Experience, Strength, and Hope time. I sound a little funny because I got a mask on. I got a mask on because I was tested positive again 8 days ago, something like that. And I have cause to believe I already had it a day or two at that time.
Right.
And I went on Paxlovid the next day. My experience, this is my second bout of this shit. How many times you had COVID?
I've had it 3 times now.
Oh, quit bragging.
Yeah, I've had it 3 times now, and it seemed to progressively get worse each time I had it.
In duration and severity?
In duration and severity, yes, sir. Yep.
Not my experience. It's a funny thing. I know of a 83-year-old guy who canceled concert dates because he tested positive. He said, I feel fine. The test says I got it. This is 83 years old and couldn't feel a thing.
That was my first experience with testing positive, is I physically didn't feel anything.
Oh, were you just tested as a matter of routine for work or something?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
I was tested as a matter of routine for work. And this was here in Santa Fe. I was actually working at Santa Fe Care Center at the time. So it became mandatory to get tested every day to go to work.
Sure, yeah.
Right. So, and shortly after that, it became mandatory for people who worked in the nursing facilities to get vaccinated if they wanted to continue to go to work.
Right.
So, I didn't never had a problem getting vaccinated. Although when I first tested positive, I didn't have the physical ailments. I wasn't really feeling bad. I really took advantage of the 2 weeks off at that time. And, but I remember what really settled in at that first onset of COVID was fear. Fear like no tomorrow. And that was something, again, talking about the conversation of COVID and recovery, that was something that I was not prepared for in my recovery program.
You said something, this recording session today is kind of it came up unexpectedly. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd be back in the saddle today or not at work. I isolated for 5 days, and I'm in about halfway through my masking 5 days.
Yep.
I know if you check Dr. Google, you're going to get a million answers, but that's the one I'm going with. And it came from a hospital that someone near and dear to me that I look over the breakfast table at works at. So I'm doing 5 days of isolation, which I had no choice in that. It was knocked me flat on my ass.
Right.
And now I feel, I don't know. I feel crummy, but okay, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. I just feel old today and not myself, but so that's been my decision. And so we had the opportunity to record a session today and put one in the bank, so to speak. And you and I were having quite a lively conversation about COVID.
Yeah.
Because between us, we've had it 5 times. Mm-hmm. We go to recovery meetings.
Yep.
It's here's what happened to me. And I'll condense this. I had a job doing a soundtrack in a recording studio on March 11th, 2020. And I went into this recording studio and I said hi to the producer, and another musician came in behind me and we all shook hands. And one of the 3 of us said, I think we're supposed to not shake hands.
Oh God, I remember that stuff.
Yeah. It was so it was still kind of a rumor at that point. This is on the 11th.
All right.
On the 12th of March, my agent called me and said, did you hear that all production is shut down in Los Angeles? I'm like, what? No? What? She goes, yeah, stand by. But right now, nobody's working. 13th, next day was Friday the 13th. Yeah. So I got the call and she said, well, good news is you're getting paid. Bad news is you're unemployed. Nobody's doing anything. we're done. The job is over, and we don't know when anybody's going back to work.
Gosh, I did not recall that it was Friday the 13th.
Sure was.
Week. Oh, my goodness.
Sure was. So 48 hours before that, we were like, are we supposed to like stand 6? What are the rules here? You know, it wasn't that we were anti. It was so new, nobody knew what the rules were.
That's where I feel like for me, that onset of fear just kicked my butt.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and from a recovery standpoint, one thing that happened immediately is I went, man, I think there's such a thing as online meetings, 12-step meetings you can go to without having to be in the room. Let me look those up. I didn't know the word Zoom. And so within, I don't know, a day or two, there are 10 billion Zoom meetings available. And so it stands, and it's not going anywhere. Zoom is here to stay. I happen to be a fan. I like Zoom meetings. And I still attend them.
I've become accustomed to them. And it's because I had to be as desperate as a dying can be at that time.
And I just plain like them. Yeah. I guess I didn't like them as much the first week or something, but it's been years now. I'm used to it and I like them. The Friendship Club, which is the home of this podcast, shut its doors. I mean, remember, it's easy to forget. We were getting groceries delivered and leaving them in the cold garage for a couple of days. We were spraying doorknobs. I didn't see a soul.
Right.
I got a wife and kid. We didn't see anybody. Our kid was in first grade at the time and did homeschooling on a computer. That is not what first graders were born to do.
I quickly discovered what a Zoom bomber was.
Oh, boy.
My goodness.
Yes.
In my kid's elementary class in the morning.
Really? No.
Yeah, that was something else. But
no, I invited a friend to give a talk for a 12-step meeting on Zoom, and we get the liveliest intrusion I'd ever seen. Depending on your sense of humor, it was great or beyond horrible.
Same.
So the Friendship Club closed its doors for 14 months. And when it was decided that it was time to, based on the ongoing changing of federal guidelines and whatnot, we put tape marks down in the meeting rooms to make sure the chairs stayed 6 feet apart. We required masks. There was hand sanitizer, jugs by the hundred sprinkled around the building, and it limped back into existence. Now here we are. I'm going to go ahead and date this podcast. I often do not, but we're here in February of 2024, and this little community center that we're in has about 50 recovery meetings a week in person.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we've got a Zoom meeting that's good for a few hundred attendees every day. It's taken off worldwide. That's pretty amazing.
And we even have a few hybrid meetings coming out of the club too, which is really awesome.
And you know what? I did a meeting. I gave a talk a couple of days ago by invitation to a meeting in the Faroe Islands. Where are the Faroe Islands there, Mario?
That's a good question.
It's way north of Scotland and way southwest of, Iceland or Greenland. It's way up there. Way up there.
Wow, I never heard of that.
18 islands sprinkled around with 50,000 people on them.
And you got a hit on the podcast out there.
Yeah, no, this was a talk. I was giving a talk for a 12-step meeting.
Oh, wow.
I was an invited
on the
speaker.
Zoom meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Isn't that cool?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I remember one time I was invited to give a talk on a 12-step meeting on a Zoom. And I said, where is it out of? This is all kind of ontological questions anyhow. Where's a Zoom meeting out of? I don't know. And they said, it's actually Panama City. I said, well, it's cool. Been to Florida. I kind of like it. I went on there. It was Panama. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, mi español es muy malo. All right. So we limped back into existence. And I have had half a dozen vaccines. When the vaccine first came into existence, some people may remember it was during a snowstorm that like tore up the center of the United States. Trucks were, pulled over and stuff. It was one of those really, really gnarly nationwide blizzards.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
So I drove from Santa Fe to somewhere in Texas. I don't remember where.
Yeah, we were driving from Missouri, getting our son back from visiting his grandmother.
I think it was Amarillo. I think I drove to the Amarillo vicinity from here. What's that? 40 straight east, and
Amarillo by morning.
Yeah, got there and there were lines of people. The shipment didn't show up, so I wasted a 10-hour round trip drive in the falling snow to try unsuccessfully to get a. So I'm all in on the vax is what I'm saying.
Right.
Where I grew up, we cured polio with that shit. I don't play around. I know not everybody thinks that way. It's just what are you going to say about a thing like that? So I've had 5 or 6. I'd have to look at the card in my wallet, and just for what it's worth, I'm in my 60s, and okay health. I work out and stuff, and I do have diabetes, and I the first time I got COVID was 2 years into this new world we're living in.
Right.
And I was flat on my back for 2 weeks. That's with immediate Paxlovid. This week, 1 week flat on my back with Paxlovid. Now I'm up and around and I'm talking, but something funny's going on. It makes you feel funny, even when you get better. What did you say? You suspect long COVID, bro. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I've been, looking up the symptoms of long COVID and talking to a new primary care doctor, which I've established recently, and fellows in recovery also. And we kind of seem to have the same common denominator symptoms of like not being able to taste for long periods of time. Right. Having heavy congested lungs for long periods of time.
Okay.
The fatigue sets in, and brain fog. Those are the common denominators that we're all having. And when I speak to the primary care doctor, and I'm going to say her name because we're going to get her on here one of these days. Her name is Elizabeth Olis, and she's a great outreach for the recovery community and people who are trying to get in the door in recovery. But she explained to me that there's no cure, no remedy. There's nothing like that for what is coming up as long COVID.
Is it detectable, or is it
that's the other thing is it's not detectable other than the symptoms that are presented to the professional or to the fellows. It's not detected. It's not. I've had these symptoms and have tested negative 3 times in the past 4 months.
Well, man, you just mentioned the tasting food thing. I forgot for the moment, brain fog. That my first go around with COVID 2 years ago, I didn't experience, except for just the general, when you got a flu or a cold or anything, your head's not right and you're stuffed up and snotting and all that. But it was like that. It wasn't, okay, this is weird. Because what I want to tell you is 1 week ago today, I bit into chili. I made some Texas chili. And this stuff will grow hair on your chest you could stab a rat with. I make it for just me. Nobody else in my family will touch it with a... And I took a bite and it was nothing. It was styrofoam. And I went, oh, this is my son. My grown son had COVID a while back and Paxlovid, and he described it as Paxlovid mouth. And
like dry mouth?
No, it just tastes weird. Like objectively weird. What's going on in my mouth?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I had that this time. By the way, I looked that up in Paxlovid mouth. They say the best home treatments for that are Trident gum.
Yeah, you were mentioning that.
And hot tamales, which I used to love. Man, when I was a kid, I could eat boxes of those son of bitches. I don't really go in for the sugar.
I would trade my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for your hot tamales.
Gotcha. Anyway, so I bit into something super spicy and flavorful, powerful, and it was like air. And that's when I got out the test. We had a couple of old COVID tests knocking around in a medicine cabinet at home, and I tested positive. And by the way, when I say tested positive, like they said, don't look at this for 15 minutes. Well, I glanced down at it, and it was like glowing red. I'm like, there's no maybe about it.
That's how my last one was in July. It hit me pretty good. Yep.
Yeah, and I still would say a week later that stuff tastes wrong. Like you take a sip of milk and it tastes like lemonade or something. Like something's going. It's not exactly nasty, but it's also not. I'm nobody's idea of a sommelier anyway. I don't have the. I can't smell anything and I can't taste anything. That's just me. But it's been made 10 times over, and I am embarrassed to admit brain fog. That's new.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, if you're using your brain to determine how fogged your brain is, that probably calls accuracy into question. But it's the kind of thing where walk into the kitchen and go, I know there was some reason I came in here. Can't remember just at knife. I came in here for a knife.
And going back to, again, long COVID, right? Like, I feel like when I first had COVID, the first 2 times, within 2 weeks, those symptoms went away. And the last time I had COVID was in July of 2023. And again, here we are, February 24.
Yeah.
And I still have symptoms. I still can't taste.
I'll make sure I heard that right.
Yeah.
Your second round of COVID tested positive. After a couple of weeks, you start to feel like your good old self again.
Yeah, started to taste. The energy came back. I was clearly able to, multitask.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where the brain fog will kick in for me is I'm unable to multitask, and I got to, take a step back and be patient with every task that I'm doing and go slow.
I heard a thing about early onset dementia that said, if you can't find your car keys, no big deal. Don't worry about it. If you're looking at your car keys and you don't know what they do,
that's a problem.
Get to the doc. That ain't good. Well, so damn it. I'm wearing a mask because I don't want to give anybody this stuff, and the question came up. I always like to point out when I get into a conversation about areas of science that my degree is in fine arts.
Sure.
I can tell you a lot about proscenium theater and not a lot about these other things.
Mine is in martial arts.
God, thank you. The degreed?
Yeah, man. I'm a first degree professor in Gracie Barra Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, it took 16 years to get that degree.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And is first degree the highest?
No, man. You can get up to about 7th degree until you get your coral belt.
It works that I've heard the expression, a guy's a 7th degree black belt.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But it takes, and I know you from, I've known you a long time. You're a professional and you teach and you go to tournaments and stuff. So you're not a dabbler.
No.
And it took 16 years at the level that you study and train and so on to get your first degree black belt.
Right.
In, what's it called?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Which I've heard called, I don't know anything about this stuff. I've heard it called grappling. Is it grappling?
Yeah, it's also another form of grappling or submission wrestling, you can also call it.
My ears and head and neck hurt just thinking about a guy your size getting your... Yeah. We're cool, right? All right. Because we're locked in a little room.
There is sustainability and longevity in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, believe it or not.
What do you mean? I don't get that joke.
Well, the thing is, and it's not a joke, right? It's one of the only martial arts where it really requires an individual to problem solve while someone else is trying to problem solve around your neck. So we got to really tap into the old primal instincts of fight or flight, breathe and relax, and deal with the bad situation that's happening.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so it's actually...
So you have to keep your powder dry when you're in a lot of pain.
The thing that a lot of us don't realize is we were doing jiu-jitsu the first 9 months of our lives in mom's belly. We were having to maneuver our way as we were growing around a uterus and around, umbilical cords and stuff like that. And the space got closed in tight. And that was our first assimilation, if you would, with any kind of primal movement. And the thing is we get developed in our brain space and forget about these functional patterns that are inherent in our DNA fascia. And that's where, again, BJJ becomes intelligent to longevity and sustainability, is even in just the practice of it, it rewilds the system, so to speak, for layman terms.
Did you say rewilds?
Rewires.
Wires, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And that's another great word to also talk about, too, that rewilding of. Because, again, there is a primal experience, I feel, to be had in the human existence, in the human experience.
To segue, my wife lost both of her long career jobs when the pandemic hit because they involved touch. And we were not even going out in the world. Stores were closed, restaurants were gone. I see old Facebook posts of me going, hey, you guys, I found a place with an open patio and I had a hot dog today. And it was like little victories. Yeah, we forget. So fast.
I was supporting a nursing facility in our community, Santa Fe Care Center.
God bless you.
That's where I was working. And that was tough because you couldn't let families come in to see their loved ones in their last leg.
Oh, golly.
It was tough. So you were the only connection these folks had on their way home, on their way out, It was a really big deal, and I was so grateful for every moment that I got to share with those residents around that time during COVID. Yeah, a lot of our even our longtime central office rep, I won't mention his name, I got to hold him during his last breath, and that was again in a time when families weren't allowed in with their people.
I knew of it. I knew in-laws of friends and stuff, but no, nothing like what you just described.
There was a handful of people in our community who were given that permission to put hands on others, and it was it's choking me up a little bit.
Yes.
It was a very great honor and a gift to have that opportunity.
And you and I talk from time to time about sometimes in recovery, the lack of a sense of proportion, that we can get so wrapped around the axle about a so-called broken shoelace, and we forget what some people are really, really dealing with.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that. But my wife did lose jobs that were they disappeared. There was no decision to be made. It was like, no, this place is closed and that place is closed. So life change that probably has been enormously positive, but very, it was a real handful to pull off what she did. And I'm very proud of her. But I know that I don't hug like I used to. I don't shake hands. I was brought up in Texas, man. And when a man walks up and sticks out his hand, you look him right in the eye and you give him a Rotarian Club knuckle crusher. That was I dodge that as best I can. There's a level of embarrassment beyond which I won't go. If a 75-year-old gentleman walks up and puts out his hand for me to shake it, he's getting a handshake. But I would say the numbers. When I got sober, I probably hugged the first 5,000 people I met, and those days are gone. Yep. I just don't do it.
Yep.
What does that do to us? Not being touchy-feely. If you grew up, not everybody does, and I know there's issues around all that, but I grew up in a family where hugs and squeezing you on the knee and squeezing you on the shoulder was the language of the home.
How about going back to what we're talking about here, the newcomer that's walking in the door and never experiencing the hug from the old timer, right?
How about Zoom babies?
Yeah,
I remember, because time moves like a missile. The first time I heard of somebody taking a 1-year chip who'd never been to an in-person meeting, my head spun, and I'm the old guy and I hate everything. I kind of like technology. I kind of suck at it. But if it weren't for texts and emails and 1,000 other details that make my life easier and less driving around, less wasting gas and oil changes for the truck. And so I love the ease and music. There's a lot of things I do that involve technology that I love. But the idea of having a year, 2 years, 3 years sober, and never having been to an in-person meeting. Now, there used to be legends of people that lived in sort of, Antarctica and that sort of thing that would find a way to stay sober and stay in touch, maybe through snail mail. I don't know what they did back in the 50s and 60s. But now it's getting to where you'd have to say it's common for people to just live on Zoom meetings and nothing beyond.
The coolest thing, the coolest thing around last year around this time was, seeing some of these people, these Zoom babies with a year or so, walking through the doors and saying, I've gone as far as I could on video audio, and I need help. And I'm thinking at least of 3 people off the top of my head that I know their first names who walked in and got the help that they were looking for and they needed. Because I believe there's, it's a great support system, but I feel like it can only take us so far until, maybe we have to make a little bit of connection. And that was a really interesting thing to see, these people, with a year and a half of sobriety, just an arm's length away from another drink. But the cool thing is they came and they found a fellowship.
Well, my deal about zebras. I feel like recovering addicts are zebras. We kind of look like horses.
Right. We
can hang out with horses. We can kind of pass. We ain't horses. And there is something about getting together with my tribe, fellow zebras, that heals me. And it's good for me. I don't know exactly how to analyze it, but I know it's true. And you talked this morning. It was one of the things that made me want to grab you and talk about COVID and recovery, today's topic, which we're we're winding down on. We do 30-minute episodes, and we're kind of getting there. But you talked about how unexpectedly to you, middle-aged guys like you and me walking up to the counter and getting into an in-depth conversation about long COVID in recovery, and you didn't see that coming, and it was super helpful to you. There's something about that in recovery that we get together and go, well, there's this topic that doesn't seem to have anything to do with drinking and drugging, but I got to get this off my chest. And every set of eyes in the room lights up, says, me too.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was a connection beyond me, And again, when I'm talking about it with one individual, 4 more ears sparked up and came to the conversation and said, hey, I'm experiencing that same thing too.
Fantastic. Listen, I want to thank you for letting me intrude on your time. We got to call it on this one. And I hope to hear from people. We're in 40 countries and 6,000 listeners. I'd like to hear how it's going for you out there. So if it's not too late, Happy New Year. And thank you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you.
Love you, pal. See ya.
Bye-bye.